Welcome to our monthly Charter School Investor podcast, What Charter School Leadership Looks Like. I'm Devante Robinson, Director of Reporting Services for School Improvement Partnership. Each month, we meet with leaders in the charter school sector to better understand how they land the plane while it's still being built. Our guest today is El Único e Inigualable, the one and only Carlos Gonzalez, who founded and serves as Executive Director of HIVE Preparatory School, which is an extraordinarily successful K through 8 charter school located in the Miami-Fort Lauderdale area. In fact, under Carlos's leadership, HIVE Preparatory earned an A rating from the state of Florida for 15 consecutive years. He has also held a leadership role at a second charter school, Beacon Preparatory Academy. Now, before we begin, I'd like to thank our sponsor, which this month is us. School Improvement Partnership, or SIP for short, promotes data transparency in the charter school sector. SIP reports on over $2 billion of charter school bonds and maintains the SIP database with 100 plus data points on 29 states, plus Washington, D.C. Over 98% of all charter schools, including over 99% of the 2024 audits, are available for review. This data includes financial, operating, and academic metrics relevant to investors, operators, and bankers in the charter school sector. SIP also publishes a premium biweekly newsletter, Charter School Investor, which goes out to over 7,500 readers with a 35% average open rate. Now, for the fun part. First off, Mr. Gonzalez, I want to thank you for taking the time out of simply just speaking with us today. I know you have a million things to do now that you have 15 years under your belt maintaining a A-rated school. So we don't take this opportunity lightly. And to start this off, sort of wanted to just dive in on your journey, right? So tell us a little bit about your early years in education as a science teacher, as well as the influences that shaped your leadership style, right? What were the things that steered you towards education?
Yeah, thanks, Devante. First, I'd just like to say thank you to you guys, Alan, for this opportunity for like finding little old Hive and little old me to get an opportunity to do something like this. We usually get kind of hidden, especially a big city like Miami, right? There's a lot of things here and a lot of flash. So sometimes pretty nice to be identified. Second, nice job with the Spanish, way better than what I could do. I actually born and raised in Miami. Parents are, so I'm first generation American, family's Cuban, only spoke Spanish going in the kindergarten and only spoke English going to college. When I started Hive, I had to learn Spanish again. And believe it or not, I got it through reggaeton. I started listening to the Spanish reggaeton music, which somehow I liked. I never thought I would. And I got my Spanish back, but a good job there. So, yeah, I would say my education evolution as a professional was extremely like circumstantial. There wasn't a lot of intentionality. There wasn't a lot of purpose. It was just kind of like trying to make decisions. I was trying to figure out my life. Um, and the reason I say it that way is that when I ended up teaching high school science, which is kind of how it happened, right? I was trying to be a science major, meteorology, be a scientist. And then through circumstances, mostly due to my own, I end up a high school science teacher. And what I found and what I caught really quickly was how difficult it was to be a teacher. It's a hard job. So take away external factors that I think and I thought we can control or could be controlled. It's just a really hard job. It's a lot of energy you're putting in every day. There's a lot of preparation that goes into every day. There's adjustments you have to make to every day. All the while doing it with a group of customers who don't want to be there. You know what I mean? Like they don't want to be sitting for 60 minutes, 90 minutes talking about the evolution of a star or Newton's second laws of motion. So most of us can sit for 90 minutes to a movie we chose to go watch, but when you're kind of forced to sit there and you're watching something you don't want to watch or doing something you don't want to do, it's difficult. So what a difficult job it is, right? You're putting a bunch of people in a room and suddenly it's my job to get you to love it, learn it, remember it, apply it, and so forth. So I found that to be such a tough job. And then the external factors were making it only worse from my experience. Society, the salaries, school administration, responsibilities, every new law, every new rule that was brought into it ended in the classroom. It was the teacher. It almost felt like, I'm not saying it was, but it almost felt like every time something new came, they added it to me. as the teacher, and they didn't give me more time. They didn't take anything away, and I didn't get a raise, right? It was just like, keep getting paid where you're getting paid, still figure out how to teach what you need to teach, but you also need to work on reading because reading is an issue nationwide. So we're going to stop what we do and we're going to do some reading instruction in every subject, including science and math and so forth. Same thing with mental health, and same thing with something that would happen in society, or if a kid, something seriously happened to a student at the school, and then they would do a little training on how we can be somewhat psychologists, obviously, to help our kids. So all good reasons, all good intention, but just kept making the job more difficult. So I remember being a young teacher and always feeling like I spent most of my off time talking about how we can help. This is doable if we just did this, if the system just did this, right? If the district just did this. And lucky me, like at in my late 20s, and after only having taught 5 years, I get an opportunity to start a charter school. And not only start a charter school, but be given the opportunity to be both the superintendent and the principal. So not only am I following instructions, I'm creating the instructions. And so I went in and I said, we're going to protect the teacher. We're going to defend the teacher. The leadership style that's coming in is going to be almost servant when we get where we need to get to, right? So, like, once everybody's where they need to be, we need to make sure that the teacher is protected, because it is a difficult job, even if we're good at our job in admin and school support, it's a very difficult job. And if we're bad at our job, we're only going to make it more difficult. So I would say the intention of my leadership style, due to my experience of being in the classroom and seeing how hard it was and how easy it is for everyone else to make it harder on teachers, was to be a servant of people doing it exactly the way we think is the best way to do it. Um, then just, I guess, other experiences we live in our own lives, logic, books you read, the conferences you go to. We have to play every other leadership style, right? Some people are going to need an authoritarian leader. Some are going to need the servant leader. Some are going to need somewhere in between. So if asked that question, like, what's your style and what style do you wish or you want to have, it would be fluid. It would be depending on the situation, depending on the moment. But if I could do it exactly the way I wanted, if everybody could be as awesome, as happy, as prepared, as resourced, everything went perfectly, then I would love to be the type of leader that is just helping everybody be happy, everybody be better at their job, be better with relationships, be better with themselves. And yeah, so I would say that's my best answer at how to describe leadership style that I've evolved throughout the years.
I love that. It's funny, as you were speaking, you said at least three times you kept mentioning the term servant, servant, right? Servant, essentially servant-based leadership, and it's interesting because I think of a term of subservience, and clearly that is what you display and what you have displayed, leading up to this point, and it's obviously done well for you as well as your staff, and that's translated into how successful the students are. So kudos to you. Um, so with that being said, you opened up High Preparatory School, and this was under some extraordinary circumstances, and that's to say the least, right? Can you share with our audience a little bit about your path to school administration?
Yeah, so I was a teacher, right? High school science teacher, bachelor's degree, not intending on going into the master's degree yet. Hadn't thought about leadership. But about my fourth year of teaching, I just reached a point where I was getting frustrated with the public school system, the school, the just a lot of things, right? Like, I would say the one that stood out the most to me was that whenever something was difficult, the schools would find their better employees, their best people, they're the ones willing to help, and they would put us on the task. But there wasn't growth opportunity for it, right? You don't get
Hmm.
promoted unless you go get a master's degree, go through a training program. It wasn't, wow, you're doing a good job, let's do something. um, and then when I started looking into it and talking to school administration, what I got back was, whoa, stay away, stay away, stay away. It was like a bad job, it was a hard job, they weren't happy. So I was not sure what to do with my life, but I was definitely knowing I was going to leave education and I was going to try to go into something else. But lucky me, I through a few people I knew, I got to meet a former superintendent of a school district down here in South Florida, and I convinced them to lunch, and we sat down and talked. And my question was, I'd like to be superintendent one day, or one day. What would you suggest? What, can you guide me? And when the conversation finished, it was basically get out. Like everything I was stressed out about, everything I didn't really like about being a public educator in the traditional public system was described to me as it only gets worse and it's unfixable because, right? And gave me a bunch of reasons. So he's like, get out now, get out before your mortgage is too big, get out before you have kids, just get out before you get too old. So I did. So I went and decided MBA is what I wanted to look into, finance, and for many reasons. I didn't leave teaching because I obviously needed to get stable and figure it all out as I was doing it. But in that transition, so I never got my MBA because in that transition, while going through the process, that same individual was connected to someone who knew someone who had a charter school problem. And that's how they called, like, hey, maybe you want to meet with them. So that phone call led to a meeting in a probably 10% ready building, uh, meaning 90% away from being ready to be a school. That someone was going to start a charter school, which was an elementary school, who they bailed. They decided not to do the project anymore. So they left the landlord pretty high and dry because he was starting this renovation to a school that, again, was 90% not ready, but was 10 days away from its first school day. And if it didn't open in 10 days, it loses its charter, which means all this money and effort put into trying to put a charter school was in serious problems because now you can't even put a charter school there, or at least not in a short time frame. So I got a tour with the landlord, with the gentleman who was a former superintendent. They brought in like three or four other people from their world that came together to say, let's team up and give this problem a try. And every reason to say no. They didn't have enough kids. I believe there were like 20, 30 kids that might have been enrolled. There were maybe 4 or 5 teachers that might have been hired. A building clearly not ready, zoning not approved, textbooks hadn't been ordered, furniture hadn't been ordered. All this in 10 days made no sense. But I wanted to be in a room like that for many years. Such talented people. I just felt like I'll say yes because I want to be with them. I did not expect to get it done in 10 days. I just wanted to be around those people for 10 days. And I felt that might help me in life, learn from people like that, lean on people like that. So I said, let's do it. And we're going into our 17th school year now. We obviously figured it out. We survived the hardest stages at the beginning, and fortunately
Yeah.
for us, have been stable and we got there. So yeah, I know I like never been an AP, didn't have my master's degree, was given way too much power. The way no money in the bank, all the reasons how you shouldn't start a charter school, right? Most people would say don't do it, but fortunately for us, I think the team was so talented that it worked out for us.
That is incredible. That speaks volume. I love that. If you remember, right, you and I have had a conversation prior to today's recording, and I kind of want to take a peek behind the curtain. You had mentioned in the past this term hedgehog, and that's essentially what got you stable. Can you explain that term and what your hedgehog is?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm stealing it from the Good to Great book, obviously, and I'm probably just manipulated the definition to a completely different definition. Like I end up googling that term every time I can because I know by now I've tweaked it improperly, but it's something to me now, right? So it's Carlos's hedgehog definition. I think the science major in me taught me that you put variables together with your prior knowledge of your environment before you start really thinking you know what you're looking at. So going into this space, all I wanted to do was give me, right? Like, what do we do? What 60 minutes of reading every day, or 90 minutes of reading, 60 minutes of math? School starts at 8, school ends at this time. We do lunch, we do PE, we do art. So first I got all this information. And then secondly, I ask why. Like, why do we do 60 minutes, 90 minutes? Why do we do this curriculum? Why do we teach extra for reading, kids that are scoring, whatever? So, the science in you teachers get the variables and ask a lot of questions. And then your prior knowledge helps kind of lead you where you're going, plus some research and so forth. So to me, what I had to do was simplify everything. which again goes back to the science in me, is test like one variable at a time. Too many variables, and you don't really know if what you're doing is the cause, is a causation, correlation, and so forth. So what I came up with was, no matter what I've done in education as a teacher during my transition for the MBA, before the whole thing with Hive started, I was working at a local university's College of Education, a bunch of projects. I got to visit a bunch of Title I schools across like 5 or 6 different school districts. I kind of came down to that. It wasn't skin color necessarily. It wasn't income necessarily. It wasn't curriculum or curricula necessarily. It wasn't 60 minutes, 90 minutes. It was people listening. like like if the kids were listening slash behaving, but behaving is defined differently, but like truly listening. If the adults were truly listening to each other and the kids were truly listening to each other and to their teacher, if everyone was truly listening, the school was successful. So people would say, an A school from the parking lot, right? You come in, it looks painted, it looks clean, the staff is opening gates for you, the doors, the office says welcome, the hallways, the classroom. So the hedgehog concept is like the one most important thing that you just can't waver from. You don't break. It's what symbolizes who you are, who your business is, and if you can align it to what's important in your business, and if you can make it clear to everybody, and if it's very doable to all levels of employee and experience, then it's a real hedgehog and it can make real impact. So for us, it was winning every minute in the classroom. So if every kid who walks in is prepared, resourced, comfortable, smiling, relationship filled, listening, and the teacher is all the same things: prepared, resource, comfortable, smiling, great relationships, so many more variables. But the expectation is that we're going to listen for 60 or 90 minutes. And then the expectation is that they're going to learn. So before we do more intervention, before I pick curriculum, before I change schedules, before I say the classical approach is better than the Montessori approach, before I do any of that, I need to win those minutes and clear out that variable first. And then when I clear that all out, then maybe I can trust the science, trust the this curricula is better than that curricula, right? This certification is better than that certification. So by doing that, it made it easy to run my business, because now how we clean the school goes back to, is this best for the classroom? Is this best for the teacher? How we staff it, how we do finances, how we do lunches, how we handle behavior, how we support teachers, how we do professional development, everything circles around, is this make the teacher and the class more efficient? And then it's easy to train people, because you hire somebody new and you don't need a manual. You just say every decision you make has to be what's best for the classroom and for the efficiency of the classroom and how that's going. So that makes your business easy to run without you having to be everywhere in every corner, without you having to constantly train and so forth, because every decision boils down to protecting the hedgehog and ensuring that the hedgehog is healthy and vibrant. The funny thing is, like at the school, Hive doesn't, and Beacon, like they don't know the word hedgehog. We don't say it that way. We say time on task. So if you walked around and asked somebody today, what makes your school different or special, they would hopefully say, I don't know about different, I don't know about special, but we definitely focus on time on task here. Every decision we make is, was it efficient? Was it best for my ability to teach today in the classroom? And that really helped a lot. And what that taught us was we can do it. It doesn't matter about your income or your skin color or your background or English or Spanish. We could do it. Once we cleared all that up and we won those minutes, we performed, we taught. 1 year experience, that's okay. And it is okay. We see it in our data. We many times where a rookie or a first year teacher gets the data that a 15th year teacher's been getting, and they get it fast, putting them in a good position. So all the things I heard forever that said Title I schools are not supposed to succeed, rookie teachers are supposed to fail, kids who don't speak English or parents don't speak English are not going to score this way. We've been able to not follow that trend. And I seriously believe it has everything to do with putting them in the position to be successful every second of every single day. On the other side of it, though, what I've learned also is the moment you back off, you lose it. So like the moment you lose your time on task, it's done. Like it does fail and it does go backwards fast. So you got to stay on it at all times. You got to stay in shape at all times. You can't back off because when you do, you lose it. So yeah, Hedgehog at Hive and at Beacon is winning every single minute. I would love to take it to the next level, which then goes to the communicate component, which is once you know your Hedgehog and once you're there, then we have to be strong communicators because it's such a variable job, such a vibrant job that it's not simple. It's not just walk in, do this, and you're going to be successful. You've got to communicate. You got to talk to each other, tell us what's going great, tell us where you're struggling, tell us what you're concerned with. And we need to do the same. That way we can keep the Hedgehog supported.
I love that. So time on task. Well,
Yeah.
considering that the school or the students don't know about the hedgehog itself, we can keep this between us, right? If we were in the reality of Sonic the Hedgehog, you would get all the coins. I'm sure you saw what I did there, but
Yeah.
at any
Yeah,
rate.
correct.
So
You
the
make that
charter
our
school
mascot.
leader. I know, right? You should.
Yeah.
As a charter school leader, right? You've held some very unique, or you've had very unique experiences. That is right. So starting off with you finding Hive Preparatory School, right? You started that from scratch, but and you touched upon this as well, and that's Beacon, right? You've also been asked to provide leadership and essentially an established charter school, right? That was floundering. Can you share with us a little bit about those experiences and how you pivoted from leading a school you created and then comparing that to coming into a school after the fact that it's been developed and essentially doing a turnaround?
Yeah. So Beacon, I'll use the word fluttering more than floundering in that there were such a good team
Mm.
that was there that started that school for 10 years. They were smart. They were so intentional. They wanted that community. That community's historically more difficult as a school. So enrollment, finances, it's much higher Title I status. The schools around Hive were like 40% proficiency, where schools over there are more like 30% proficiency. State average is usually 50. And so Hive's probably more like high 30s when we first started. Beacon is more like low 30s when they're in their community. So it was a good group who just kind of never got out of the community expectations. So like if you walked in there, you saw good people and loving and caring and hardworking. But if you looked outside and looked at test scores, they never really like broke the barrier. Like they like to say the closing the achievement gap. Um, and so when I got involved, I went in, learn. What do you do? Why do you do it? Learn. What do you do? Why do you do it? Right. Same thing I did here at Hive. Understanding that like this is too difficult of a business to think my one model that had all these outside and inside variables manipulating it for so many years would go into a whole other community and suddenly work there. Right. So I just went in and said, what are you doing and why? What are you doing and why? And this time I knew how to ask more questions and better questions because now I had many years experience under my belt. I mean, it was 3 years ago. So we're talking like 13 years of being a charter school leader um, under my belt. And then from there, what I got was there were a lot of good ideas, a lot of good, we're trying this because we liked it over here and we're trying this, but the core, right back to the hedgehog, wasn't first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, or even 10th thing out of their mouth in their plans. It was it was everything else, right? Like we like this curriculum over what Florida does because Florida's bar is lower, and we want these kids to achieve at different places, and
Yeah.
all of that's great. But it's like, but if they're not getting every minute of it every day, like it doesn't matter what curriculum you're giving them. And then also, like if you're going with a curriculum that isn't Florida based, who's training them, right? So now we get curriculum, and because it's Florida based, we get training, and we have training with all other schools and districts and charters. So you're developing, and then what data do you get? Well, we all take the same tests and do the same progress monitoring. Back then, the whole state didn't do progress monitoring together. It was kind of like according to the curricula you bought. So if you're on your own, then what data are you using to know your trends and how October went, how November went? So I just kind of felt like they were in their own little archipelago, right? Their own little island way out there, trying their hardest.
Yeah.
But I thought if you could bring it here, so that's what I did. I just kind of came in and said, let's take care of the hedgehog, and see what curricula we decide. Let's take care of the hedgehog and see what behavior plan we decide. And what came out of it was, yeah, let's do everything we're doing at Hive. Like it basically fell that way. And then very quickly, the school took to it. They liked it. The teachers were thirsty for more training, more resources, more data. The behavior plan protects instruction. So the teachers were less dealing with behavior, more teaching. Other people were dealing with behavior for them. And then the school very quickly, those who accepted and absorbed it and followed it, started to show the trends we expected. The learning started to happen. The smiles started to come from the teachers. Suddenly we can do this. Suddenly the tests are not biased. Suddenly the tests are not whatever they are. And then by year two, which this past year was our second full year there, now you have pretty much all the staff on board because, you know, as a charter, people can leave freely and we can ask people to leave freely. So took our time, went through that. And I would say at the end of year two, we're at a very high rate of people who have buy-in and the results are significant. The proficiency numbers are significant. The more buy-in, the more results you're seeing. Like
Yeah.
you see it in the kids and so forth. So yeah, so that's all I did. I went in and kind of stuck to my hedgehog and then tried to make some of it their way and our way. And the result was once we were able to make it, whether it was a beacon way or a hive way, but sticking to the hedgehog, the results were quick and we're seeing it. Best teacher retention they've had ever 2 years in a row, best test scores they've had ever 2 years in a row. So we're happy with where it's going.
Wow. So clearly there's sustainable growth there. And of course, that doesn't surprise me. The same way, I'm not surprised about some of the impressive awards that you've received, including, right, earning A grade from the state of Florida for 15 consecutive years. What's the secret sauce? Tell us how you did it.
Yeah, you know, sticking to winning every minute. Like we've never discussed at either school what our data goals are. Like we don't talk. Okay, last year we were a 76. So if we get this kid and this kid would have just gotten a three, we would have been an 82. So this year's goal is an 82. And how are we going to get there? No, what we do, like next week, teachers report to both schools. And the vast majority of all the meetings is about how to be as effective and efficient as possible with everything we're trying to do. And that takes you everywhere. That takes you to how you prepare, your professional development plan, your data plan, your instructional delivery, your resources, your classroom setup, like your parent communication. It really is everything that it takes to be a successful school, but with the foundation of you being as good at your job as possible so that you can be as good every minute as possible. So do you have enough planning and does it align at a time that you're going to use it well, is more important to our conversations right now than, okay, we gave you a planning, but let's take a look at your third block. Those kids need a lot more intervention. Like that comes later. What's more important to us is that the teachers, the staff, the kids, everybody's put in a position to be successful for every minute. And then it's our job to come in and execute that. With that, everything else should come. And then if the curriculum needs to be tweaked, we'll tweak it. And if we need to like move our teachers or make ourselves better, or put in new admin, some new program just came out and it's awesome. And you know, we can bring all that in because the most important concept is stable. It's still going well. So Hive's been real successful. Visitors come and see a lot of change. Like I'll apologize to people that we're just a normal school. They see our scores and they get excited and they think, or at least I think they think they're going to come in and see this awesome place with the slide. I've seen awesome schools that do that, or awesome programming and student engagement in the community that no one's ever done before. And I'm always so apologetic because I don't feel like we do a lot of those things, but that it's it's nothing special. It's the core that follows. So yeah, the result has been awesome. I mean, we just got a Blue Ribbon Award, which is a national award for some of the best schools in the country, and we're a high Title I school. And I was surprised that it wasn't even for the achievement gap department; it was for just performance. Period. So like we are categorized with the top performing schools in the state and in the nation, and it does not take into account being Title I, like you said, an A forever. The state of Florida gets its top 20%, and they call them schools of excellence. So you had to have sustained that over a set number of years. And Hive has been a school of excellence since the program began, despite being a Title One school, which if you go to that group of schools and you filter by Title One, it's very small number because generally Title One schools aren't there. We're a high performing charter. That's another category that the state of Florida gives. And then when you go to the websites, we're a 10 out of 10, a 5 out of 5, a gold, according to some of them. And then I was fortunate to be awarded Principal of the Year by the Florida Tax Watch a few years ago, I guess now more than a few years ago. So, and we won a Building Hope Impact Award. Building Hope is a national group that also had like an award program, and that one was a competitive award also, and we came out as like the number one overall in their portfolio across the country in 2024. So yeah, all of that with the focus of simply just being the best at our hedgehog and being happy with ourselves every day. So that's pretty cool.
I love that. And I heard earlier you were talking about, if you had to make tweaks here and there, you would make that. So that essentially goes back to what you said in the very beginning, with being fluid, as it pertains to the leadership style. So speaking of which, right, what is your philosophy of good charter school leadership?
Yeah, something that scares me in a previous podcast I did, somebody asked me what are your fears, what keeps you up at night, and it's that I miss something that is transcending out there, that other kids and other teachers and other staff get to experience, and I missed out on it, and then I let so many people down, right? Like it's like, oh no, like you should have worked for those people, or you should have been at that school. And the reason I feel that way is we're very isolated as a mom and pop. We don't have a large management company with a bunch of other schools. So if I'm not careful, I'm alone, and I'm just living in my own little brain thinking that I know everything, and that I'm doing better than the whole world, or worse than the whole world, whatever. But so I've lucky for me from the very beginning, I've always felt like the best approach to being in anything in life, but especially a leader of a charter business, is to learn from others, to meet others, to get experience. So from day one of the biggest things I did was I reached out to every school administrator I could. My only caveat was that like they fit my personality traits. So like in all these meetings you kind of have to go to, and any chance you meet someone a certain personality, which was always just trying to listen and learn. People that are not selfish. It was their questions were not just like, I have this problem, how do I fix it? There were always a little bit more whole in the business that stood out to me. So I just kind of introduced myself and asked a lot of questions. Can I visit your school? And from that, not only did I learn so much, because everyone has such great ideas. I mean, social media taught us that you watch people's TikTok videos and it's just like, wow, they're geniuses. How'd they come up with that? So no matter who you are, if you're not learning from others, you're just going to be stuck, right? Just like society was, the more global we became. What a coincidence! Our technology, spiked, and our health and our all this good stuff. So, I definitely, whether you are who you are is important, obviously, because that's our strengths. But a type of leader that listens and learns from others and gets information from other people, because then you could tweak it for yourself, is important. Everyone I found isolated, I think kind of just they get stagnant, and they're not really going anywhere. So I definitely would say that something that having this ability to change is important when you can also go and learn, and you can go to other people, and like who knows, right? Like like a Montessori program, for example. That's the opposite of us. We're very college type prep mentality, um, but you'll get something or a lot from them, but if you don't, you don't really listen. So I would say definitely, as a leader in this space, you really got to get out there. You really got to listen and learn from other people and other schools. You got to do everything in your power to get into other campuses. If not, I think things will bypass you, especially in the competitive landscape we have now, where everybody's out there trying to fight.
Understood. And we all know that you won't shy away from competition, right? We heard there was a Sammy Sosa in the making at one point, right? You were recruited to play baseball at one of the best baseball colleges in the country, even earning an MBA in sports management, right? Has sports had any influence on your leadership style?
Yeah, I'll just be me. Never finished the MBA, obviously, because the school, the Beacon, or I'm sorry, Hive thing came up, and I jumped on it, and I'll use recruit. I who knows? I knew of they knew my name. Let's just say that some of the colleges out there knew my name. Yeah, sports I think was real big, and I think in all our cases and in life in general, our life experiences. So I don't like saying sports only or even sports can. It's just how I took it, I guess. But sports taught me a lot. Sports taught me how to win, how to lose. Sports taught me how to win like a team, lose like a team. Sports taught me how to take the loss on me, how to take the win on me. Sports taught me how to be the freshman who has a role as a freshman. Got to defend yourself, but only to a certain limit. And then your role and your responsibilities are different than the senior captain, who has different roles and responsibilities. So all of that with different coaching styles and different teammates, I just felt like I got so exposed to so many different variables that directly relate to the business world, even as a father and as a mother and a brother, because it's just relationships, really, right? We're all one team trying to win one thing, and we need each other, and we got to learn how to care for each other, but push each other, and sometimes remove someone from your team and accept the new person on your team. I mean, sounds like running a business. So I loved it. I thought that shaped me a lot. And in the case of when like starting a charter school in such a tough situation at a younger age without any experience, period, I don't know. I just thought back to the captains when I was a freshman and how they treated me and what I liked and didn't like. And then suddenly I just had to play their role and try to be the person I wanted them to be, or I liked that they were when they were in that role. I think without any of that, I don't know what I would have relied on. TV, maybe. I don't know, like just any kind of TV shows or movies I watch, because there's not many things else out there in my life that I thought could give me that experience. Definitely not a student at school. And not, just like maybe some part-time job here and there, but it's a crash course on being a leader, when you have to be the person in charge, the person making the decision, the person getting in someone's face, or the one who sits back and lets the team win. And my job was simply, since as a pitcher, you don't play every game. My job was simply just writing down on a paper whatever the coaches asked me to write. I got to experience a lot that I believe really helped me here.
I love that. You said earlier that sports taught you how to win as a team as well as lose as a team. And, we can go back as far as 2019 and going forward, right? During the era of COVID, which we still see the remnants today, there were a lot of losses, in the charter school space. And one of those areas were with staff attrition. That was a big issue since the COVID pandemic. And one of your pillars for success is hiring highly qualified teachers. How did you use your leadership skills to recruit them to begin with?
You know, it, that's happened. That's been forever. So before COVID, during COVID, after COVID, even up to today, in South Florida, finding highly qualified teachers and quotations has always been difficult. Um, and I use highly qualified in quotations because I don't agree with the definition of highly qualified teachers. I get it. I understand the position of the people who have to make that definition. Like you've got Pensacola to Key West and so many things to worry about. Like you have to create programs and distinctions, and the bar can't be the bottom. You got to start somewhere. But highly qualified people is really what we've been looking for. We put we put non-certified people in very important situations because they're the best person for the job. And then it's our job to call our lawyers and state reps and parents and everybody to figure out how this is legal, right? Like what can we do? We don't want to do anything not allowed, but the best person for your kid, if my kid were in this class, this person would be the one teaching is this, but they don't have a certification because they haven't done this, this, and this that the state of Florida requires. Um, and whatever. So there's ways through and around that you're always allowed to do. But highly qualified people are has been the key from day one. And then everything else will follow. And same thing as like we're going to win the minutes and everything else will follow if we're doing the best we can. And yeah, so the COVID, so that whole teacher exodus. I mean, I know it happened in a lot of businesses, but in ours, we called it like the teacher exodus. It hit us. And it bothered me a lot because that's the first time and only time in my career here that we actually had people leave because they weren't happy. Like, they leave for a better situation. Congrats. And they leave because they're moving or whatever. But for the first time, it was like unhappy people. And it was weird because like it was almost made up. It was almost like they were just like jaded out of nowhere. Some of them who accepted my faults forever, suddenly my fault was really bad. And it's like, whoa, where'd that come from? Because they had good reason. They weren't making it up. It was just kind of like I was that for the last 12 years before that. Like what suddenly caused this to be so extreme that we're not even going to have a conversation, right? It was just people kind of like finding reasons and running or moving and going somewhere else. So we dealt with it. It wasn't as bad as others. I heard some crazy, crazy stories out there. Like I think in our case in total, it was like 6 out of like 50 something teachers. But I'm not used to one, so it was a thing. But again, we I think we survived it really well. I think I mentioned to you last time too. We were one of the only schools that didn't have a dip when COVID happened. They graded differently. They took a year off and they didn't do learning ins or whatever. But proficiency numbers outside of math, everything else kept the trajectory that it was supposed to keep. Math made a lot of sense because that's like a whole new subject kind of thing, but we caught it in 1 year. So it was a 1 year drop. And then the very next year, we got back not where we were, back to our trajectory, which is every year the kids have been doing a little better and a little better and a little better. Um, and the philosophy was just keeping good people around us and putting the best possible people in the best possible situation. If it means an AP needs to be a teacher right now or this year because it's what's best, it is what it is. That's what we do. And that, I think that got us through it. And as a result, it makes it easier for us when they say there's a teacher shortage. Yeah, but that's because they're certified, or that's because you want experience. If they're young and certified, but they're good people, to us, that's highly qualified. And we've been right with it. If they're not certified, but it looks like they have a path, meaning they have a bachelor's degree and there's a trajectory toward getting it, we're not afraid to jump on that if the person's of the type of quality we're looking for. And I think that got us through very successfully.
Love that. So essentially, it sounds like well, your team, all of you, you've exemplified. There's an old saying that you grow through what you go through, right? So
Yeah.
fast forward to today, you have a large group of highly qualified people, right? How do you inspire them to excellence?
So when it's simple, when it's attainable, and when you're all in it together, it's us just trying to be the happiest we can be every day with our lives. Something I take very, very serious. When we speak with our admin team, I mean, I say it as much as I can, and I believe they believe it too. But we have a big responsibility for the human capital on this campus because they're spending the vast majority of their awake life with us. And we have a high level of responsibility in the decisions that happen in this school every day. So, our job is ultimately that the people who chose us, the families who chose to come to our school, the adults who chose to work with us, that they wake up as happy as they can with whatever we have control over. So when your focus is that, and you're just trying to to have everybody be happy and successful, all you're really trying to do is work with them so that they can be as good as they can be, right? Some really need to be great teachers. That's what drives them. That's what motivates them. So that's what our focus would be. We try to make them as good as they can be as a teacher. Others need social, need love, need a lot of check-ins, need opportunities outside of the classroom. Right? Ideally, we're trying to figure out everyone's motivation, everyone's personal purpose, and our job is to help them meet that and be successful in that. So that's it. That's what we try to do every year. So we sit as teams and we talk about each group of teachers and say, what is it that we think they're going to want? And then are we right and are we fostering it? So by doing that, you're developing people, you're developing relationships, you develop trust. And then again, if we're learning from the best, if the curriculum is strong, and if we're winning all our minutes, and our babies are showing up prepared and trying and doing their best, we should succeed and we should be pretty happy with ourselves. And that's generally the path we take. And I believe that's been successful. And seeing Beacon now going through that same projection and trajectory, it's given me more confidence that we're doing the right thing.
Makes sense. And I love how you noted, you're essentially peeling the onion and you're trying to understand the things that the teachers need, right? And at the end of the day, we're all humans, right? So in order for us to perform the best way that we want to, we also have to ensure that our needs are being met. So I really love that. And I remember, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, at the very beginning of this conversation, you said when you were getting into this industry, I think you said it was a superintendent or someone who told you, hey, steer clear from the industry, right? You were saying that you were getting more and more and the pay wasn't changing. And we see that today, right? We see that today with the teachers, right? They're called to do more and more. And sometimes that's with less and less material. How do you how do you support your teachers so that they stay? I understand that you said that you will see the additional things that they may need. Is there anything else that you might have incorporated that just make them want to stay?
Yeah. So right, like the superintendent statements of like get out, it's only going to get worse. The nice part about a charter space was those things were now under your control more.
Mm,
Where the things he was bringing up were not, right. So like I don't want to go too deep into it, out of respect for people and
yeah.
whatever. But generally speaking, the reason the charter thing got my attention when it came to me was, other than obviously other variables, was, oh wait, those things now are not out of my control. Now they are in my control, and I'm going to be able to address it. So yeah, like I know the bar is low, right? Where what I'm about to say, I know there's a low bar, but um, what I did was make sure teachers never feel like they don't have enough resources, never feel like too much is being thrown on them, never feel like like they can't do their job. That was it. That is what that's from the beginning of it all. The hedgehog is that they can teach all day. And all these things you just mentioned, some and there's more, is what stops them from being that. So I had to create a world that they never say that. They never feel that. They never say, we can't get this. My school won't buy this. Education doesn't have the money for this. Everyone else says it. Our admin team says it and feels it. Our office team says it and feels it. And every other staff member we have in the school will say and feel education budget is tight. We don't get everything, and we don't always get like treated the way we would love to, which is great bonuses when the year goes whatever whatever whatever. The teachers are not going to say that. So it's kind of like somebody's going to have to pay. It's not going to be the teachers. It's going to be starting with the people who get paid the most and then trickle from there. Like something I forgot to mention from my experience, but something that would just stick in my head, and I know it was just my one school that I taught at, but I used to hate walking to the little refrigerator in the teacher's lounge to go grab my lunch with the line of kids behind me, because you can't leave them alone, to so I can get my sandwich or whatever to go back, put it in my microwave or something, to go back to do some tutoring, because that was my only window for tutoring. And all the while going through the office of the people making way more money than me, having takeout lunch and socializing and laughing and smiling. And that was my only real break, because my planning was used for a cover a class because there were short teachers, and I was a baseball coach, so my other planning was to go do baseball. So anyway, they don't. My job is to protect them so that they're not doing more with less in the bar of education, right? We want to compare it to other businesses, then that's a different game. So that's why I'm saying bringing the bar down. So the first thing, I did a talk in the national conference a couple of years back, and the question that it was about, what does it mean to protect that time on task, to protect the hedgehog? And the one that got the most response, and it was number one, is behavior. So handling student behavior is some. There was a survey done recently by somebody. I should have looked it up so I could be more accurate here. But it's like the number one thing, when you take away, when it's honest and it's behind the scenes, it's student behavior makes this job the most difficult in the classroom. Whether it's hard to handle, makes people quit, or whether it's hard to get the scores and the achievement we're looking for because we get distracted too much by behavior. And by behavior too, it means kids who don't do homework, kids who don't come prepared, so they're bringing it backwards, right? It's hard to keep going because they don't remember yesterday, or they don't remember 2 days ago. So number one was, we have to protect student behavior, so that we just have to make sure that student behavior is as little the job of the classroom teacher as possible. So you devise a system that's clear, that's black and white, that's consistent, so that we all know. And I use kind of like driving on the highway. If your car, like I think it was Judge Dredd, I don't know, some old school movie, that where you're driving and you break the law, your car just a ticket comes out of your car and it's like you sped 1 mile an hour over the speed limit. You now have a $100 ticket. If it did that every time, you had no ability to change it, none of us would drive near the speed limit. We would all drive a little slower because if you doze off, you certainly got $100 ticket. But because that doesn't happen, because we rarely have officers or police on in our highways, because we've driven by police officers at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 miles an hour over the speed limit and they don't pull us over, we all speed, right? We all break the law every day, even though we call ourselves good people every day. I know I wake up every day and break the law because I'm more than 1 mile an hour over the speed limit. But if every time I hit one or two over, I get pulled over, I get that ticket, I'm going to drive slower. So number one is for this behavior is our school has to be so consistent with our clear rules that have to be fair that eventually we just don't get close to breaking the rule because we know the consequence. And so taking it from there and going through all your, dojos and points and schools that do like money for good behavior, like, like school money and you can buy things and restorative justice programs. We try and learn from everyone and do all those things, but all those things are not as detailed because eventually it needs to become someone else's job so the teacher can keep teaching. And that is a big piece of removing things from teachers. So our school has a much more elaborate program than I think this podcast allows to just having behavior for someone that's disrupting learning to a point that I need to get them out is they need to come out. And I'm talking it is very aggressive. It isn't like to what schools mostly do when it gets so extreme. It's a very, very early on thing. So everything that way, right? So if planning is a need, we got to protect them and give them some planning time and figure it out. If grading is hard, so we like to departmentalize in elementary, for example. As a result, your writing teachers have a lot of grading that they're not used to doing. Writing's hard to grade. So usually they'll get like the natural tendency, right? Like grade fast, grade only a certain part of it, don't grade it. Like it's a negative. So, but we got to grade it. So we have to come up with a system to grade it. So every writing teacher gets a paraprofessional assigned to them so that they can take a writing break, a grading break for writing. So when we do centers or when we do something that now the teacher doesn't have to be so much in charge, the teacher can grade that in their kidney table and this para comes in and makes sure the class is going well because we got to grade it because it's great for everybody that it's graded fast. But if you're doing it during the time you're supposed to be doing it while you're getting paid, it's easier to do, blah, 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 blah. So yeah, protecting the teacher and keeping that stuff away from them, I think is vital. I think it's huge. I think it's important. I think it's a big reason for the success and the turnaround at Beacon, for the success here. And I think that's one of the biggest things that nationwide everybody should take seriously. We as administration very quickly get into the position of almost like not wanting to do more and keeping it in the classrooms and keeping it with the teachers. And I believe we make a lot of decisions with this kind of like just keep it away from me approach, which I think is just a big problem. It should be the other way around, and that's who we are. So, yeah, like if they need a PD world, we'll give it to them. If they need us to kind of back off a little bit, we'll give it to them. If they need us to be the disciplinarians, we'll do it. If they need us to just support their discipline, we'll do it. If they like, we had a science teacher here that needed to learn science because elementary teachers like teach everything, right? They learn everything. But we departmentalize science, and she's like, I don't really know a lot of science. Well, then I became her science teacher while she was a science teacher. And eventually she learned it and then she became a science teacher. So it is our job to make sure they never say what the question was. That's to me, that's one of the more important things in running schools.
Wow, that's very incredible. I'll tell you what, as a former police officer myself, I totally understand when you talk about the 1 and 2 mile over the speed limit. I've had my fair share of speeding within reason for any bureau or agency that's listening, right?
For the record.
For the record, exactly. We're going to take a quick break here. Wanted to give a big thank you to our sponsor, School Improvement Partnership. School Improvement Partnership, or SIP for short, promotes data transparency in the charter school sector. SIP also publishes a premium biweekly newsletter Charter School Investor, which goes to over 7,500 readers with a 35% average open rate. So, looking at what lies ahead, what emerging trends do you see that we should keep an eye on for public education at large?
You know, I only know Florida, right? So I'm going to speak to Florida. Um, for a good while now, we're demonizing the traditional public school system. And there's, like always, when you want to demonize someone or some entity, especially such a big entity like the traditional public school system, you're always going to find something to argue your case, right? Um, so like just pay attention to like talking heads on political and even sports, right? Like you're always going to pick your narrative, pick your character. You're always going to have something to follow. But we're attacking the traditional system and promoting the growth of charters and now promoting the growth of private with public dollars. And for good reason, in my opinion. Obviously, I'm on the side of I think that that's a good idea. But in the process, I think we're demonizing the traditional system too much. And the reason I bring that up here is because if we do that and we just blindly take that position, we're going to miss a lot of their good. There's a lot of talented people in that space that have done a lot of great things for a very long time that we're going to ignore and not learn from them because we're just giving them a title because we want to so that we can promote our other agenda even if our agenda is the right agenda. So I worry in Florida, and I've said this in a few meetings, that we're going to just ignore it. Hive has leaned on its public school system, its Miami-Dade County public schools, significantly. The curriculum that they create, that they pick, the tweaks they do, the training they give their teachers, all of that we use for the most part. So most of it we use, and we're successful because of it. So it's not all us; it's them. If they didn't let us do that, and I had to create our own curriculum, number one, I would have different resources, right? I would have to put more money on the creation, which would take away from the things I'm doing now. But number two, who knows if I know how to do that, right? Or if we would have hired the right people. So I fear that we're trending into this name calling, which we obviously are there as a country right now, and accepting people that name call. And or groups that name call or businesses that name call or ourselves for name calling, and we're going to miss on some of the good stuff. So phase one of the answer to this question is I worry we're going to put such a bad label on the traditional public school systems and that we're going to miss out on the many, many, many good things they've been doing. The nice part about criticizing them is we can identify the things that we don't like, and then as a result, we can adjust them ourselves. Which, like for example, here in South Florida, I started Hive when we only had like 20 something charter schools. Today we have 150 something charter schools, and the school systems had to adjust their perspective to their customer instead of the people who have to go to their schools, right? Like we as teachers, when we were there, like the kids were yours. They were forced to go to you. They weren't really treated like a customer that you have to earn to get and earn to keep. And that has changed. They've learned and they speak differently. And as a result, the customer is getting a better experience across the board. So that's part one, right? I fear we're going to miss out on that. And I think if we don't do it so aggressively, we can get the positive while tweaking what we think we want to tweak, and we can go there as a system. The other piece of it is I worry that like now that the world is putting, or the state's putting tax dollars for the private schools, which I think is also more competition. And I'm okay with my personal opinion is fine with it, but the worry is that we're going to just do it again, right? Go back to where we were, which was this no accountability world, and that now you got this group getting this money that they're going to still be able to charge in addition to the money that they get from us. So that is it really going to help everybody that we're thinking about? And then if they're not taking the same tests or tests that are truly accountable, are the kids really learning? I kind of worry that we're giving this carte blanche, this very go ahead charters, grow as you please, and go ahead private schools, you're getting more money now, go do what you got to do. And that by the time we figure out there's a lot of bad players here, it's going to ruin a lot of families and lives. The charter system took a while to clean itself up too from the bad players. And then the worry is that we're going to do the same again, and that families are going to go because they're related to their church or it's closer to home or they don't like accountability or they don't like the demographics that the school boundary takes them to or something. And then they realize a little later, oh, this school didn't really keep up with curricula, with pay their teachers, so they were losing teachers, all of that, and it might be a little bit too late for those families. So I worry we're going a little too aggressive, is kind of what I'm saying in Florida. And I would love to be a part of a group that does the, hey, let's do this. Monopoly isn't ideal, but let's create some kind of methods to, like, at least put some things out there, protect some people, and at the same time help them be more successful. Because when I bring it up, I hear the world tell me, well, yeah, they'll fail if they're not good. And it's like, yeah, but they don't fail that fast. And those are lives that are pretty much ruined by the time it happens. So I think that's the two pieces that I think I see in Florida happening.
Completely understandable. That makes a lot of sense. As we come to a close, right, we want to sort of take the lens and just reverse it here. So, if Carlos today could write a letter to Carlos in his first few months of opening Hive, what would you put in it?
Yeah, I saw that. That's a good question. I guess if this were like a psychology program, it would show that Carlos does a bad job looking backwards or looking internally. That Carlos is just looking forward a lot, because I struggle with these kind of questions. And it kind of aligns well with what I just said now, anyway. So, um, the space, like Carlos hesitated in pushing his world to grow years ago, because I felt like the model we were doing was pretty unique. I mean, I know it's simple, but I just didn't like, every time I bring it up, I have yet to meet someone who says that's exactly how I run my business. I usually see people who are doing it and didn't realize it, and then we're like, yeah, you're doing it. That's hedgehog is there too, and they're like, oh yeah. So I hesitated and hesitated and hesitated and getting really loud with my team to grow it, because I felt like I needed more data, right? Like more results. So if I could go back 20 years, it would be like, you got it, do it, go, grow, grow, grow. Put more people in this world that you guys have been creating, because you can do this and you can adjust and you can be successful. You have a good model. Because looking back, like, there wouldn't be a lot I would change, right? Outside of, the best thing to tell the young person is, don't stress that one scenario. You got this. Like, yeah, like, you'll be fine, right? Like today I stress certain situations less than I did before. But in general, I would say to Carlos, like, go do this, go fight the fight, go grow, go put more people in these situations, because you would be successful, and you'd probably help a lot of other people who like the model that you created.
All right. I love that. Well, uh, I can't say it enough. I really appreciate you taking the time out for speaking with us. So a huge thank you to you for
Thank you.
just putting us into your schedule, and of course, a special thanks to our sponsor, School Improvement Partnership. This has been an absolute treat and a pleasure to speak with you, and I look forward to having more conversations in the future.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks again for the opportunity. This was cool.
It's our pleasure. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.